Good morning. It's the Sunday, the 29th of December 2024. Sex assault crimes. Now, I'm not going to single out any particular crime, but it is very topical at the moment. And I want to give you a case in point or a case study. I served as a member of the Irish Police Force on Garda Síochána. And for the first 10 years, I wouldn't be considered skilled enough to do serious sexual assault cases. You could do break-ins and burglaries and all that type of thing and traffic accidents. But for the last 20 years, I would be. Now, it's very important for this bit of a talk that I make to you that I don't divulge the area or location or the people involved or anything else, other than to say that what I'm going to tell you now is true. And I have to be careful. If I make a slip up, I have to stop the whole video and go back and do it again. Now, before I retired in 2005 as a detective sergeant, there were a few things I gleaned from the Pulse system. When you were coming close to retirement, you didn't record stuff that would be going forward because you were going out of the job. You let somebody else do that. And I used to do a bit of fishing through the Pulse system. And while what's on that is secret, of course, the general data is not. One of the things is that 1/4 of all crimes being investigated by the Gardaí, or all reported crimes in the previous year, were sexual related. Sexual rapes, assaults, allegations of sexual assault by members of the same family, and all of that. The other thing I did glean from it, and I can't say if it was maybe, as they used to say long ago, an aberration, if it was typical or not, 1/4 of all fatal accidents in the previous year were motorcycles alone, motorcycles running into something and being killed. There's two simple statistics that I gleaned from that idle month I had before I stepped out of my duties as a detective in the Irish Police Service. Now, for the last 20 years anyway, I was a sergeant. I was a sergeant at 27 years of age. And I'd been considered capable of investigating a crime, and I was good at it. I was very, very good at it. And I could bring it the whole way to a report, prosecution in the court, the whole lot. It was good. I was good like that. And I was good for younger Gardaí, male and female, to work with, because you could just ring me up and I'd give you the answer. They knew when they got the answer from me that was reliable, that was the correct form you had to fill out, or whatever it was. So I always help people come along. You got no thanks for it. Your authorities considered that what they really wanted was that you engage in their sports, that you socialise with them, that you tell them how great they are, you don't rock the boat, and you go along with all the schemes. And among the schemes of the senior officers in the Guards is that if they just sit up there like chief superintendents, sometimes superintendents, and maybe the regional commissioners as well, I don't know so much. And if there's a guard doing a good job down in the sticks and he's getting on to solve a big crime, they take it off him and give it to one of their pets so that they can promote that pet and keep down the guard or the sergeant. Do you understand me now? So if we take it like that, if there was a guard out in Clonaslee, County Laois, and he's doing a good job, and there's a chief superintendent in Tullamore, I think that's the headquarters, and if he has a clerk there, he'll ring up that guard, you're off that case, and he'll put the clerk in to investigate it. When all the work is done, the clerk will arrive down and demand full cooperation, and usually the guards will give it. I didn't cooperate with that. I would try and thwart it without getting into trouble. I'd lead them up false alleyways, and when they couldn't solve it, then I'd solve it in the middle of the night. And I would often have myself and my men lambasted by inspectors, chief superintendents for solving crimes, because they would want their own crony to get solving it. Anyway, this is about a slightly different thing. I'm going to give you a case in point. In this particular case, it was my job to solve it. Nobody got in the way. They just wanted it done. I think it was a holiday weekend. Now, in a particular place, this could be Meath, Westmeath, Cavan, Monaghan, but it could be also in Balbriggan. I was a while in Balbriggan too. So, as a sergeant, so it's not possible to glean who this was or where it was. But I was responsible for the investigation, and it was a holiday weekend this happened. Now, this is the lady, we'll call her Lucy. Now, the reason I picked this, it's cream for rubbing on the thumb, cream. But that's it. This is Lucy. I pick it because she kind of has a skirt on her, sort of female. If you look, you see the way I am. Okay, right. Lucy was once married, and we'll put this black little bottle of iodine I have for putting on cuts. Lucy was once married to this guy here. Now, Lucy was from the localish area. This guy came up from another area, away down the south, doing some type of work or whatever it was, and he met and they fell in love. As far as I can remember, they had no family. The love lasted a while. This guy was a bit of a messer, in fairness to him. This one wasn't really. This one was a bit of a messer. Drinking and getting drunk and gambling and not great, but not a bad fella, not a bad fella. But he wasn't just that type that he'd keep down a good job. You could employ him as a van driver or anything like that. So what name would we put on him? I'll pick a simple one here. Tommy. Now, I hope I remember these right. This is Lucy. This is Tommy. I hope I keep these right. So Lucy and Tommy. Now, these people split up, and this guy went back to his mother down the south. She stayed living and separated, and it would be normal enough. I think they were divorced, or they were near enough. It'd be normal enough that she'd form a new relationship. There's no issue with that. So we'll put, I said this lad's Tommy. We'll put a funny name on this fella because it'll be easier remembered. Now just let me think of a name. But I can't use a French name. You'll think he's Francis. He was Irish, all right. We'll call him Malachy because it's an Irish name. This is Malachy. Again, none of these names are right. So now just to explain, this is Lucy, the local one, and this is Tommy, and this is Malachy, who is a new guy that came along and they met. Now I'm going to stop the camera here and make a wee note of the names. So I've noted the names here on a bit of paper. Tommy was the original husband of Lucy, and now along comes Malachy. This is Malachy, and that was all right. Now, Tommy still had a bit of a gra, as to say, or he didn't lose the wee sparkle for Lucy. He was a bit of a playboy, but he wasn't unfaithful to her. He was more of a messer, and he wasn't up to expectations. But he was all right in a way, maybe, but I can't say any more about him. But anyway, she formed a wee bit of a relationship with Malachy, and there was, she had her little house somewhere, out a bit the country, I think it was. There was no one near hand. And she formed a bit of a relationship with Malachy. And it was coming up to some event, like some weekend. Don't know, was it Halloween? It could be the June bank holiday, or maybe there was some kind of a music thing on, or some wee bit of a festival. Yeah, I think there was a festival on, and that was all right. But she, Lucy, and Malachy met up or went to the festival, and they had a bit of crack and a bit of drink, and they went back out to her place. And what happened in her place is a matter of conjecture, but certainly it appeared Malachy had been inside and had a cup of tea or whatever. That's as far as the evidence would go. But what do you know happened? Didn't Tommy come duking up, and he still had a bit of a flame for her, and he got a few drinks and a bit of chat and plucked up a bit of courage, and he got a taxi to the end of the road, and he went up and he started peering through the window of the house where Lucy and Malachy were inside. There was some bit of an altercation, and as a result, I just take this collar out here. It's a bit tight on me here. As a result of that altercation that took place, this one, Lucy, came in and made a complaint to the Gardaí, and the Bowl myself, Val, was put investigating it. Now immediately a policewoman, a band guard or a police guard or detective or any trained policewoman comes on the scene, and the first thing happens is to get possession of her clothes. If she has her own clothes, including her underwear, you let her wear them. If she doesn't, you have to go and get them in one of the providers or shops up in the town or some local town, or get the key holder to Dunnes Stores or whatever, put it down to the guards, no problem. Anyway, her clothes were got and safely put into a proper evidence cardboard bag and sealed and labelled and everything else, and that included her underwear and all of that. So that was done correctly. It wasn't my job to do it, it was my job to make sure it was done right and that there was no cross-contamination. Now, as far as I can remember, Malachy did not give a sample. He was only interviewed a day or two later when it was well died down and when he might have time to think, but I cannot remember, and I don't believe he ever was offered a sample or he ever gave a sample. And at that time you couldn't force this man to give a sample of his blood. This one couldn't be forced either, but it would weaken her complaint, and as far as I remember, she gave a blood sample. That's all right. So, for example, if there was any hair or pubic hair or any substance on the real culprit, it could be checked against this. Are you with me? Now, the allegation from this lady Lucy was that she had been having a cuppa and sitting on the sofa and exchanging pleasantries with Malachy, her new boyfriend, that nothing happened from a sexual context, and that he was heading off when the next thing this guy appeared at the window and appeared at the window, or appeared at the door, might be more exactly. He appeared on the scene. Now, it seems from my memory, these two said they didn't actually meet. So, this guy was maybe just gone according to them, and this fella said that he saw both of them in the house. He was looking in the window and he saw both of them inside in the house, and it upset him to see the love of his life in the hands of another man, and many a song was written about that. Now, I have explained that fairly well. So Lucy alleged this guy came in and pinned her down on the sofa and committed rape against her, forcibly and against her will. Now, when you're reading up on recent sex crime allegations and famous cases, and I won't mention any, there's no need to, it's an old principle of law that a rape victim adds to her case big time by complaining to the first person she met. So if some woman is raped and she ran out and stopped the car and she cried and told him, I'm after being attacked by a man, and whatever she said, that is good evidence. That shows she acted as you would expect. Whereas if she conceals it for a month and then comes out and reports it, that weakens the case a lot. And that principle is under attack from the woke brigades and the Democrats in America and all the lefties. They don't like this. Oh, the woman must be believed. The woman must be believed, and all that. So, she ticked the first box in that she alleged the rape, and she said that Tommy was the boy. This guy was not involved. She also said she had sex with nobody that night or in the early days leading up to it. Right? She had no sexual relations, including with the new boyfriend. But this guy came in and raped her, held her down, pushed her clothes aside, penetrated and all the rest, and did the full business, and there she was roaring and crying and couldn't get out from under him. So this is what she reported the minute she got out. I think the guards were one of the first she came to, so there was no doubt she immediately alleged this guy did it. Tommy. Are you with me now? So you have that so far. So the next job was to find this fella, and we got him somewhere. I sent out the order. She's made a complaint. She was in the process of making a statement to the Gardaí. She had her clothes taken. She was in the process of being medically examined. She had said enough that this was the fella. And the first thing we do, and the first thing I did, get him arrested as quick as possible. There was no difficulty arresting him. He was caught, or maybe he came in, I don't remember, but he was taken into the Garda station and he was brought to a room in it for interviewing. And when he came in, he denied emphatically. I spoke to him. I did not rape her. I did not do it. And I said, she says she did. And he looked at me. He said, Sergeant, she didn't do it. Now, none of these characters knew me at all, I'd say. They wouldn't have known me. We weren't that well known to any of these characters. I did not rape her. I did not do that, he says. I did shout at her and I did get upset and I had a few drinks, but I didn't do that. Now, you could guess yourself, and I mightn't tell you the result of this in this video. You can guess yourself what my reaction to that was. And that's the first question now. If you want to pause the video or hold it, we'll put this as act number 1 here. I'll just put it up for you here. 1. See it there, act number 1. What was the first thing came to my mind when this happened? So we call this part 1, and you, the jury, I think I'll call this video You the Jury now have to think about this. What is the next thing I should have done? And this is a terrible problem for juries, police people not up to the job. And in years to come, there's going to be lots of people convicted of crimes they didn't do because the Gardaí are deliberately dumbed down. They take them into the force and they give them a dose of wokeness. They tell them, go out there and catch everyone you can for no tax or whatever. And community police until they're nearly dead. They have the lifeblood walloped out of the local communities with their own community policing, which I don't agree with to that extent. Now, so the point is now, he says it's not him. Should I have said, look, give me that, I'm too long listening to you. What do you think I would have done, and did I do right? Okay, so you have that now as act 1, and now you pause it and say you don't know, so I have to move on now and tell you what I did. And you have plenty of time now to pause it. And if you're watching this with your wife or your family, you can always come back here again, note the position, and just come back, tell them the piece. What did he do next? Because this is as true as God is me judge. This is the truth. So, as the investigating officer, we're about 4 people under my control, no problem. All great guards, turned out to be great detectives after, men and women. And I said to him, you'll give a sample of your blood. At that time, there wasn't a compulsion to do it. Now I think you can make them give a sample, and if they refuse or fail, certain inferences can be drawn and they can be convicted of that, and then the sample has to be destroyed if it's not used within 6 months. But at that time, that wasn't the law. It was a voluntary thing. I said, I strongly advise you give a sample of your blood. So what was my thinking? Well, I tended to believe him. I'm long enough going about to know that a certain amount of sexual assault allegations are false. I seen a young girl of 9 being told by her mother to allege a sexual assault against her uncle, and I knew damn well the uncle had money, and it was nothing more than to screw money out of the uncle. I saw cases that were investigated by other detectives and other female Gardaí, and they couldn't take the statement right. There's a knack in doing police work. I mean, there's a book called The Crime Investigation Techniques, and they don't want to read it. So I asked him, would he take the sample? Now he had the option. You said you're innocent, will you give a sample of your blood? And he upped and said, I will. The minute he said that, the word was sent out. I'm using a box of iodine tablets, kelp tablets here. The doctor was called in, and he happened to be a man, didn't matter. Doctor came in, down to the room, filled out the form for your man, rolled up the sleeve, and as he did, as that was going on, the guard who was the station orderly came down to my office, came down to the room and called me out. Oh, I didn't tell you there. One of the things he's entitled to is a solicitor. All people in custody have to be told they're entitled to a solicitor. So that was a wee mistake, but I think I haven't damaged the video too much by saying that. So he was arrested, taken in. He's read his rights, told what his rights are, and he can have a meal and all that in due course, and what the law is and how long he can be held for, and the superintendent can extend the period. But he was only in the first hour or so of custody, and it may have been read out to him about samples and all that, but whether it was or not, he chose a solicitor. I think he didn't know any solicitor. I think the way it was, there's a panel of about 6 solicitors in the locality of every town, and any one of them will do, whoever you can get. And usually on a busy weekend, they might decide among themselves someone to be around. So it can be hard enough to get a solicitor, but this particular solicitor, so what name will I put on him? Sure, we'll use the blue marker here. I better not name. Right, this solicitor, we call him Eamon, after Eamon Ryan. So I don't think there's any solicitor around the place called Eamon. I don't think there is. No, I don't think there is. I hope there isn't. We call him Eamon Leo. So he can't be anyone that we'd know or that would be known. So this solicitor was called, and I got the word that the solicitor would be a little late from the station orderly, and that he had left word that he wasn't to be interviewed or given give any sample until he arrived, till he had legal advice. By the time this advice arrived to me at the door of the room, I had the doctor already ready to take the sample. And I knew the law, which was always a great boost to me all my life. One of the greatest talents I have is to understand the law, because nobody can bluff you when you understand the law. And I knew there was nothing about the solicitor could dictate what happened until he came. All he could do was advise his client. Usually it's to make no statement, say nothing, shut your mouth and let the guards prove their case. But I ploughed on and got the sample, filled up the documents, got the doctor to sign it, and that was it. That was handed over, and a copy of the sample was given to my man Tom. He gets a second copy. It was rolled up in an envelope, sealed, that all done, and that had to be sent to the laboratory. I can't remember, do you post it or what, but I think we got it delivered up to the laboratory, because that was a key sample. So there was a sample of Tommy's blood group, and that works for all sexual seminal fluids, all body fluids. There was a sample of Lucy's blood, no problem there. She'd nearly have to make a complaint, like, she didn't give you that, it'd be a disaster. The doctor come and gone, so he's out of the locale. He's gone. The solicitor arrived in and asked me, the SO knew it was dodgy, did he take a sample? He did, he did. He gave a sample. I left word there was no sample to be taken. I said, you have no authority to do that. You have only authority to advise your client. He began to read the law to me, and I told him, if you want to argue with the law, I'll argue it. You should tell me what section allows you to stop a client from giving a sample. And anyway, it's to his interest, because if it turns up negative, he'll be proved innocent. If it turns up positive, he'll be proved guilty. And my job is to find out what happened. It's not to make you rich or poor. He got as thick as a bull being lectured to by me. It wouldn't be the first time that the solicitor and I locked horns. But that was the situation. He could do nothing about it. And I said, the sample is taken, it's locked away, and I will not give it to anybody till it's delivered to the forensic science laboratory. He was thick about this. He went down and he advised your man that he shouldn't have given a sample. And your man says, well, sure, I didn't do anything. And he says, no, you don't give a sample. And then he advised him what to say and not to say. But even though he probably told the client, your man in custody, that's Tommy, not to make any statement, Tommy did make a statement. And he said that he kicked up a racket at the house. And he said he was a bit wrong to do it and he had to accept this is the way things goes. But he says, I didn't attack her and I wouldn't hurt her. I would think too much of her to do that. I liked the lady and I wouldn't do that. So that was it. The statements were all taken, kept in, given a drop of tea and eventually released from custody. You can lift them again if you have further evidence. But that was that. You have the story there now. And we're now on 25 minutes, so we're doing all right. I've explained now what happened. I better go over it again because sometimes people can find it hard to follow these things again. Lucy was separated from Tommy, maybe in the process of being divorced. Tommy was gone back down the south. He had been up in the area working or doing something. I don't think he'd worked too much, but he met her and he fell in love. And anyway, I don't think they had any family, but he was gone. And she met, who did I say this, Malachi. They went out on the town, had a few drinks, and went home and had a cup of tea and maybe an old kiss goodbye. She says nothing happened in the house. They did not make love or have sex or anything like that in the house. And just as he was going, or maybe after he left, Tommy arrived on the scene and started hassling her, and he landed in through the door and attacked her on the sofa and held her down and raped her. Full rape. This guy was gone at the time. She offered samples of her blood, which meant worked for all body fluids. All her clothes were taken voluntarily, no problem there, by a female officer. And this guy was gone. He wasn't interviewed for a day or two later. But his case was that he didn't have any relations with her and that he left and he didn't really know much. He knew she had a boyfriend before, but he knew no more. I think he kind of said he regretted going away. If he had to be there, he might have been able to stop this awful act. And this fella said that he didn't touch her, that if she had any relations with a man, it had to be it must have been this fella, but it wasn't him. And the solicitor, I can't think what name I give. I cannot name him at all. A solicitor immediately was late coming and rang in to say there was no sample to be taken. I ignored him because the law was not that clear that time. I ignored him and I persuaded your man to give a sample because I felt this would cut a lot of it. This has cut through a lot of the guesswork. And I got the sample anyway, and it was sent off to the headquarters, very carefully guarded, I think brought up by a patrol car and 2 guards, so nobody could say it was interfered with. He made a statement to say he didn't do it. She made a statement to say he did do it, held her down forcibly and raped her. Her clothes was gone up as well. So I think I've that made clear. How did that case go? Now, I think the best thing to do is upload this video now and let you people ask me questions, because if you were a jury in a court, you'd have me there to be cross-examined, and you may want to ask questions and find out all, and then I'll answer the questions for you, and then we'll have a verdict. So I was a great investigator. When I look back at it now, I was good. But I'd always try and get at whatever happened. I mean, if he did rape her, he had to go to jail, and that was it. He'd only be getting out about he'd have been out about 5 years now. He returned down where he came from. I don't think he ever came back again. I don't know. But if he came back, it would be for a trial. So what could have happened is, I haven't heard of him since the thing ended, but what would have happened if there had to be evidence against him, yes or no, and I'm not telling you, he would have been charged and there'd been a trial. But that trial, he'd probably have done a period in jail. That trial would be over now. So when I say he was gone away, he'd be gone away anyway. So he's gone out of the picture, he's not in the area. Are you with me now? I'm not saying now whether he was convicted or not, or what took place. What the guards have to do is put a file together. I often did it, and it's then sent to the state solicitor, and the state solicitor sends it on to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who decides. Now, I have to say, most of the Director of Public Prosecutions decisions were all right. If you made your case properly, the problem was he used to say, we're going to start on a multi-thousand-euro trial here, and there's this weakness and there's that weakness. It was up to the guards not to have that weakness. And I think if it had been maybe anyone else, only me that night, they wouldn't take the sample. There'd never have been a blood sample. Now, let's see what would happen if there was no blood sample. Her clothes would have been examined. There would have been perhaps semen, bodily fluids from a man. It would have been advantageous if the man had given a sample. The fact that he did not give a sample might have weighed against a prosecution against this fella. If he had given a sample, Malachy, and it wasn't his fluids, then that would rule him out as the attacker. So that would mean that he was unlikely to be the one who had sex with Lucy. You with me now? But he didn't give a sample. So that was a weakness that you as the jury would have to consider. And you'd have to ask the question, maybe, why? But there's no obligation on him to give a sample. So you'd be relying on her word. Now, she would have sworn solidly that she was there, that he left, that along come Tommy and got in the door. And I think she even said he came in the front door, managed to get the door, wasn't locked or something, and he immediately attacked her on the sofa and kept at it till he managed to have full sexual intercourse with her. There was fluids on her underwear. And if there was no sample from this fella, you'd have to decide was it his or not, based on the other evidence, available. It was essentially her word. There was no doubt somebody had sex with her. If it wasn't this fella, it's unlikely that anyone from the side of the road came in and done that. Highly unlikely. This fella here admitted that he was there. He crept up looking around the house, and the first thing you're going to say, and rightly so, is, what took him there? Why was he going over and eyeing them? You have to build in that. But you must remember the proof must be beyond reasonable doubt in a criminal case. So is it reasonable? Would it be reasonable to say this woman was lying? Would that be reasonable? You'd probably say women don't lie. So you have to think about that. Would it be reasonable to say this guy had every reason to lie? He was facing jail. Say it wasn't him. What would you do in those circumstances? That's all you had. She cooperated every way with the guards. Sobbed, tears and everything, crying, everything. She'd cry in the court. I got an awful doing. I mean, I'm gone from him. He has no right to do that to me. You'd have got all the waterworks you could. All the sobbing and everything. And it might be genuine. You can see clearly, I think I've stated clearly, that the sample, if it was tested, would prove a lot. It could prove it was his bodily fluid or not. If it was his, how did it get on her? Surely that's reasonable, beyond reasonable doubt, she'd have been convicted. Sorry, he'd have been convicted, Tommy would have been convicted because there's a sample proven to be his fluid on the lady's underwear. So really at that stage, all you're worried about is consent. Would she have consented? Well, she'd have probably said, how would I consent? And in fairness now, it's unlikely that a lad would come up like that, even though she knew him, after her boyfriend going, would come up and come in and say, can we have sex? It'd be very reasonable to say, no, she wouldn't do that. Why would she have that with him? Tell him, get the hell out of here. She was already trying to get away from him. So you'd probably assume, no, there was no consent. But he wasn't arguing that he had sex with consent. He was arguing that he didn't have sex at all. He was in the vicinity, he was about the house, he was gawking in the window, he was envious, but he didn't have sex. And her case was that he did. And he came in and he got so upset that he raped her, or whatever way you want to put it. Now, have I made that clear? So what I want you good people now to do, if you're interested in this case, is I want you to question me underneath and you're entitled to call in the guard or anyone, or the doctor or anybody else, and question him. What did you do? Now, there's no doubt about the sample. All the paperwork is right there. So that'll make a good video in light of a lot of things that's going on, and a lot of things in that case. I hope you understand it and have a good think about it. I hope I made it clear. That's, I think, one of the big points of my videos. I'm a very clear speaker, I think, and I'm good at explaining things. She got rid of him a while back. I think it was maybe 2 years. Got rid of him. Go on. And he humped off back down to somebody down the south. I don't think he was in a relationship. And he wasn't a bad fella, but he wasn't much good either. Pal was starting to see this was a single woman, and sure, bit of a relationship beginning to form. Came up to this feast. What do you call it? You know that we do festivals in Ireland. August festival, or you say you could have such a festival. You could have the Atbai festival, or the what do you call it? The Drogheda festival. You know, you can have that in rural Ireland. So he was from the area, not far away, but not too near. And the two of them were at the festival. Got a taxi home, and it's possible that they were going to stay the night, right? If he had sex with her, it probably would have happened before this Peep and Tom arrived. But definitely, she said this fella was gone and she was just there relaxing, getting ready for bed when this lad arrived at the window, and this wasn't doubted much. He kind of admitted being there. What was he doing there? But then she went on and said he came in the front door and he raped her on the couch. He said he did not get to go in and he did not rape her. He did shout abuse at her and all of that. So that's the case without the sample. And with the sample taken against the lawyer's advice, all it is going to prove is that there was body fluids found on her that weren't hers. It would prove it was his or it wasn't. It wouldn't prove it was his or it wasn't, for he didn't give a sample and at that time didn't have to. Now that's a long video and it's very true. Have a good look at it now over the next few days, and we'll be back to you then with the verdict later on, and we'll see how it goes. And if you have any questions, ask me underneath. Goodbye. Thank you very much.